Hello, excuse me. Hello, Jacksonites. Welcome back to my review of the Jaws franchise. Starting off, of course, with the very first sequel, released in 1978, Jaws 2, directed by Ginat Schwark, I think is how you pronounce his name. He's a French guy, so French names are kind of hard to pronounce. So yeah, Jaws 2. And also, for the record, still haven't quite returned to YouTube, at least not in full. Consider this like a slow transitionary period. Sorry, I just woke up like an hour and a half ago after staying up for 18 hours. Parenthood. So forgive me for that. But yeah, Jaws 2, released in 1978. Well, before we begin, let me just get this out of the way. Jaws is a phenomenal movie, and despite I do like I like this movie and I like a couple elements of Jaws 3, but let me just get this out of the way. All three of the Jaws sequels absolutely have no reason to exist. Hello, Tokupunk. I like the name. Yeah, none of the Jaws sequels have any reason to exist. The Jaws sequels is a blatant example of a studio just trying to cash in on its own franchise's success. It's blatant, it's obvious, and in some ways, well, with the last two, especially the fourth one, it's pretty shameless. But yeah, none of these sequels have a reason to exist. And the same case can be said for Jaws 2. Jaws 2 is definitely a cash grab. There's no doubt about it whatsoever. However, I don't necessarily think that if just because a movie is a cash grab, that doesn't automatically mean that it's a bad movie. A lot of times cash grab films can be bad. Look at Halloween Resurrection, for example. I do like the film, but I do see that movie for what it is, as just being a gigantic cash grab on Halloween H2O. The studio just wanted a little bit more of that Halloween sequel money, and especially with the star power of Jamie Lee Curtis, they just wanted to rake in the dough. There's been plenty of sequels and even franchises that have spun off just to be cash grabs. Unfortunately, even Godzilla started out as being just a cash grab, though granted it quickly shed those shackles of being a cash grab, which that is one of Godzilla Raids Again's biggest problems. But like I said, just because a movie is a cash grab, I don't think that automatically means that it's a bad movie. I think that stigma kind of needs to be not necessarily discarded, but I think it should be a little refined. Because while, yes, Jaws 2 absolutely is a cash grab, I think it's a good movie. And as long as the movie is good, yeah, it's a cash grab, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Because if you still make a good movie, I don't think that's nearly as big a sin. As the franchise would go on, I mean, yeah, we'll talk about that when we get to Jaws: The Revenge. First, though, I have some nap mouth. So yes, as I said, Jaws 2 came out in 1978, and due to the success of the original Jaws, of course, Universal immediately wanted to, well, not immediately, there's a 3-year difference, but Universal wanted more of that Jaws success money. And they commissioned a few people to make a sequel. Apparently, one of the original ideas for Jaws 2 was it was going to be a prequel set around the events that Quint described when he was on the USS Indianapolis, featuring a younger Quint fighting off against killer sharks. That would have been a really cool concept for a film. And I actually think that's still an idea that Universal could use if they wanted to make another Jaws movie. It wouldn't really be that difficult, because obviously you could just cast younger actors, and the only real actor you need to cast for is Quint, and you can just find somebody who looks kind of like a young Robert Shaw. So I think that idea could still be utilized, but ultimately they just passed on that, and there was the final product of Jaws 2. Initially, for the first month of its shooting, it had a different director, and also this movie did have an unfortunately a troubled production. The first director for the film, named John D. Hancock, proved to be unsuitable for an action film and was replaced by Gennat Schwark. Gennat Schwark, the only the only other movie that I know of that he has directed is the 1984, I believe, Supergirl film. I've never seen it, but I've heard it's beyond god awful. um, so yeah, this and Supergirl are probably his most well-known two movies, and he and the studio changed the script around quite a bit, and they ended up turning Jaws 2 kind of into a diet version of Jaws, which we'll talk about when we get to my cons. And also another aspect of this film being troubled is Roy Scheider did return to reprise his role as Chief Brody, kind of begrudgingly because he only did it due to contractual obligations. And he and Gennat Schwark would apparently clash repeatedly on set to the point where there was an actual fist fight that broke out between the two, and a cinematographer on this film had to step in and break them up. So, despite the troubled production of this movie, Jaws 2 still does have a legacy in and of itself. It went on to gross $208 million against a apparently $30 million budget, and it was briefly the highest grossing sequel in history until later the next year in 1979, Rocky II was released. And also, the film's tagline, "Just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water," has become one of the most famous in film history and has been parodied and copied several times throughout the decades. And in terms of just fan reaction to Jaws 2, it seems, for at least from what I've seen, to be pretty positive. Everybody says that none of the Jaws sequels come even close to the original. Well, it is true, but I've never really heard anybody talk real harshly about Jaws 2. Jaws 2 definitely is the most favorable of all three Jaws sequels. And myself included, I actually really like Jaws 2. I think it's a very worthy sequel. I think it's a very underrated movie, and I think it's a damn fine movie. It's got some problems, but I don't think. Yes, this is as I've said, a cash grab sequel, but this movie doesn't feel nearly as malicious or just kind of. Well, it is, but also it just doesn't feel so studio mandated as a lot of other cash grab sequels out there, because I actually do feel like the studio and the crew were actually trying to make a good movie with Jaws 2, not just a soulless cash grab to rake in more money. And obviously this movie did rake in money. $208 million against $30 million budget obviously is no small feat. So, and also I'm going to go out there and say, while Jaws 2 is not equally as good as the original Jaws, I have a few nitpicks with Jaws, but overall it is obviously a damn fine movie. Jaws 2 has a few issues, but they're not quite as damning as many other movies out there. What I'm trying to say is I think Jaws 2 is almost very much so on par with the original Jaws. I think Jaws 2 is a damn fine film in my opinion. So with all that being said, let's get into the plot of Jaws 2. While a new hotel opens on Amity Island, a 25-foot great white shark kills 2 scuba divers photographing the wreckage of the Orca from the first film before heading into Amity waters. Their camera, which took pictures during the attack, is recovered the next day. The shark then kills a female water skier, and the driver of the boat tries to kill the shark using a gas tank and a flare gun. However, the boat explodes, killing her and severely burning the right side of the shark's face. The nickname for this shark on set apparently was Scarface, according to Jackie Boy. A killer whale carcass bearing fatal wounds. Was this the thing that inspired Dino De Laurentiis to do Orca the Killer Whale? Because I think it has been gone on record of saying, wait, no. Orca, I think, was 76. Never mind. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, the killer whale carcass is found beached, dead. Police Chief Martin Brody, once again played by Roy Scheider, believes a shark is responsible. Brody explains his concerns to Mayor Larry Vaughn, who expresses doubts that the town has another shark problem, like an idiot. Brody then finds floating debris from the destroyed speedboat, and as well as the boat driver's burnt and charred remains. Brody calls Matt Hooper for assistance, but Richard Dreyfuss wasn't available for returning for this movie, so he's in Antarctica on a research expedition. Brody prohibits his son Mike from boating out of concern for his safety, and instead lands him a job on the beach, much to Mike's dismay. It's money, dude. The following day, Brody watches a beach from an observation tower and causes a panic after mistaking a school of bluefish for a shark and shooting at it with cyanide-enriched bullets. However, his fears are confirmed when photos from the diver's camera are processed, and one of them shows a close-up of the shark. This actually is one of my kind of minor nitpicks with this movie. I, even myself, don't really think the photo of the shark in this movie is convincing enough to be a shark. It's a very close-up shot of the shark's eye in one corner and maybe the ridge of its mouth in one corner. I feel like they should have pulled it a little further away so you can see its full eye and its teeth. But whatever. When he presents it to the Amity Town Council, they refuse to believe it is a shark and vote Brody out as police chief with the sole dissent coming from the mayor. The next morning, Mike disobeys his father's orders by going sailing with his friends, taking his younger brother Sean with him to silence him. Marge, another teen, takes Sean with her, and they head out on 6 separate boats, going past a team of divers led by instructor Tom Andrews. Moments before submerging, Andrews encounters the shark. Panicking, he rushes to the surface, which causes an embolism. Soon after, an embolism is the lodging of an embolus, a blockage-causing piece of material inside a blood vessel. The embolus may be a blood clot, a fat globule, a bubble of air or other gas, amniotic fluid, or foreign material. And this can lead to either a heart attack or a stroke or even an aneurysm. Soon after, the shark hits the boats of teenagers Tina and Eddie, who have strayed from the others. Eddie falls into the water and is eaten. Brody and his wife, Ellen, also once again played by Lorraine Gary, witness Tom's evacuation by ambulance and hear that the other divers suspect something scared him. Jeff Hendricks, who has taken over as Brody's replacement, tells them that Mike went sailing with his friends, So Brody and Ellen commandeer the police boat, aided by a reluctant Hendricks, to rescue them. They come across Tina's boat and find her hiding in the bow, and she confirms the shark's presence. Brody hails a passing boat to take Hendricks, Ellen, and Tina to shore while he goes searching for the kids. Meanwhile, the shark attacks the group, striking one of their boats and causing most of them to either capsize or crash into each other. Mike is knocked unconscious and falls in the water. The only pair whose boat is still seaworthy to retrieve Mike, the only pair whose boat is still seaworthy retrieve Mike and leave the others to take him ashore to get help. Sean and the others remain adrift upon the wreckage of tangled boats, and a Coast Guard Marine helicopter that Brody contacted arrives to tow them to shore, but the shark latches onto the chopper's pontoons, giant balloons that water helicopters can use to land on and stay afloat, capsizing it and drowning the pilot. The shark knocks Sean into the water, and Marge is eaten while saving him. Brody finds Mike, who informs him of the situation before Brody sends him to safety. Brody finds the others at Cable Junction, a tiny island housing an electrical relay station that supplies power to Amity via a giant, thick, coated, waterproof cable that's literally from this little tiny island all the way. I think it's like 100 miles or so, maybe even more, of ocean to the island of Amity itself. The cheering and jumping that greet him attract the shark, which attacks again, causing Brody to maroon the police boat. He tries pulling them in with a winch, but instead hooks the underwater power cable. The shark hits the boat wreckage, sending most of the teenagers into the water, and they swim to the edge of Cable Junction. Jackie, Mike's love interest, and Sean remain on the boats. Using an inflatable raft, Brody taps the power cable with an oar because they had established earlier in the movie that the shark is indeed attracted to sound, lure the shark towards him. And in another pretty badass final one-liner, "Open wide, say ah!" The shark swims towards him and chomps down on the cable, electrocuting it and setting it ablaze. Obviously killing it, causing it to sink to the bottom of the ocean. Brody collects Sean and Jackie, and they join the others on Cable Junction to await rescue, thus ending the movie on a pretty happy note. So how about this plot? Well, there's one element of it that is an obvious issue. But, well, I'll just get it out of the way. And this is the only thing I will say, to quote Eric Harrison, the plot is a lot of the same shit that happened in the first movie. Yeah, this movie definitely has sequelitis. Looking past that, I think the plot is pretty good. It does, in many ways, still feel like a natural progression in the film's story. Even though there was never a sequel book. Peter Benchley only wrote one Jaws novel, so they were just going off original stuff here. But I do like the film's story. I like the progression. I definitely like the film's continuity. It's obviously very still closely connected to the first movie. And it's not like another sequel or other sequels that, kind of acknowledge the events of the previous movie, but they're still trying to do their own thing, but still conveying themselves as being sequels in the spirit of their predecessors. But the continuity here is very strong. There's still tons of connective tissue to the first movie. So it feels it feels like the same island. It feels like the same atmosphere. It feels like the same town. And obviously, because there's a lot of returning cast members, it just feels like the first movie. So the tone and continuity here is still very strong. So yeah, I like this movie story. Yes, it suffers from sequelitis. I don't think it's nearly as bad as a lot of other movies with sequelitis have, but it's still there. It's obvious and blatant, but still, I like the movie for what it is. It also definitely raises the stakes and raises the body count, which a lot of good sequels should do. And also, this movie definitely, well, I'll talk about that in a few minutes, but yeah, I like the film's story. I think it's very natural, it's well thought out, and it feels like there's effort here. This doesn't feel like a soulless cash grab. This feels like people who legitimately wanted to make a good sequel to Jaws, and they were actually trying to make a good movie. And I think they succeeded. So, with all that being said, let's jump into the pros and cons of Jaws 2. Also, with Jaws, with Jaws for Jaws 2, I have a lot of pros. Um, I could probably cut it down to 8. Yeah. So, pro number 1 is the relationship between Chief and Ellen Brody. Um, Where the franchise ends, yeah, I think it would just be better off if you just left the Jaws franchise at Jaws 1 and 2. Two good movies, just leave it at that. But then we had to lead right into Jaws 3 and 4. But whatever. Well, I shouldn't say the relationship, but the characters of Martin and Ellen Brody. The rest of the cast in this movie, it's nice to see the return of um what the hell's his name? Murray Hamilton as Larry Vaughn. It's the same actor from the first movie, of course. Um, Actually, he's the only returning actor, or the only other returning actor aside from Roy Scheider and Lorraine Gary. But Roy Scheider and Lorraine Gary, they definitely give very good performances in this movie. Or yeah, in this movie. And dare I say, I think their performances are even better in this film. Might seem like blasphemy. Not to say, more specifically though, for Lorraine Gary. Lorraine Gary was, of course, in the first Jaws movie, and she had decent moments, but she was just kind of there. She was the loving, supporting wife of Chief Brody, and that was it. But it worked for the film's context. But with this movie being a sequel and establishing that obviously some time has passed, well, it's actually kind of hard to pin down exactly how much time has passed. They kind of say that it's been at least 4 years or so since the first movie, but Mike has aged at least like 6 or 7 years, um, because he was like 9 or maybe 10 in the first movie. Now he's 17. So unless they're maybe trying to kind of convey that that little boy from the first Jaws was like 12, but it's just a little odd. But there obviously is still some time that's progressed. So I'm just gonna say it was like 4 years. So they're both much more seasoned Islanders at this point, and you can tell that Martin is much more comfortable being an Islander. He interacts with the island's people a lot better, and he's adapted very well to being the chief of police to this small island. And he has a close relationship with a lot of people, which is why when he steps in, even after he's been fired as the police chief, nobody like says you're not a cop anymore. You need to leave. When the dude suffers an embolism, he's just like, I just want to go take a look, and everybody allows him to step in, and nobody really questions him when he's like, my fucking kids are out there. I need to go get them. But yeah, Roy Scheider, I think, delivers a better performance in this movie than in the first Jaws. Not to say his performance in the first one was bad. It was good for the film's context. He's a newbie. He's kind of a little bit of a panty waist, a little bit. It's very obvious he's out of his comfort zone. And he's still new and he's still adapting to Amity Island. Here, he has adapted. He's not new, and he has gotten to know his surroundings, and he's adapted to his environment. And now it's just normal everyday stuff at this point, and he just feels more comfortable and more confident on screen. Um, I feel like he might have been doing this on purpose, but for two reasons. One is that he was a professional actor and he was really trying to give it his all, but also I feel like he was playing nice in terms of playing the character just so that he could get out of the contractual obligations he had with Universal. Um, I don't know that for sure. That may just be a rumor, but I do know that Roy Scheider actually did try to do something with Chief Brody, and I think he did something that's in many ways better than its predecessor. And Lorraine Gary, I also think gives a better performance in the first movie, mostly because she kind of does have a bit more to do in this movie than she did in the first Jaws. She's a bit more involved with Amity's politics. She herself is the one that's spearheading the opening of this new hotel in Amity, obviously bringing in more cash flow for the town's economy. She's just a bit more involved in this movie, and she's also a lot more vocal and still just as supportive, if not even more so, to Chief Brody, especially when he gets fired. He's kind of drowning his sorrows a little bit and kind of just he's angry, but he's just more so very disappointed. And Ellen is just right by his side saying, "Well, it's not so bad. And you did your best. I know you didn't do anything wrong. And I'm not really angry at you." So she just comes off as being a good, supportive wife. And you definitely buy these two as being married for quite a long time. And it's good, strong stuff. I disagree. I like the action scenes in this movie. So yeah, that was pro number one. Pro number two is I do like the tone to this movie. It's again very similar to the first movie. It definitely still feels like a summer movie. Not quite as much as the first film, though you definitely could say sailing. Like, um, they have a term for it. I think it's day sailing. Yeah, I think that's it. That's definitely a summer activity, and there's lots of summer activities that are shown in this, like also water skiing and water parachuting, I think they call it, are also summer activities. So it still feels like a summer movie. It has that summer fun day at the beach atmosphere that the first film had. And it also, in some ways, due to the film's bigger budget, I think it's just a little bit better um, because more stuff is shown than in the first movie. Um, Also, I want to say I like this movie's runtime. The original Jaws was 2 hours and 4 minutes, and this movie is quite a bit shorter, but it's an hour and 56 minutes, and I actually think that's perfect. Not to say that any of the fat in the first Jaws was bad, but this movie trims some of that fat and feels a bit more streamlined when you watch the film. It doesn't have the good slow moments of Jaws. It makes up for it by being a bit more streamlined and a bit more action packed. But anyway, yeah, I like this film's tone. It's still very fun. It feels like a summer movie. It's very high octane and very entertaining. And again, to quote Jackie Boy, I've stated this a long time ago. The first Jaws is like a horror suspense film, which it is. Jaws 2 is like an action movie, which I wholeheartedly agree with. It's a good sequel tone, in my opinion. Pro number three is this movie obviously had a bigger budget. And just the way that it's shot, its cinematography, its explosions, there's a bigger body count, which I'll talk about in a minute. Um, there's a better looking shark, which I'll also talk about in a minute. And just overall, I think this movie's production value and its video quality and its audio quality, just overall, you can tell this movie had a much bigger budget than the first movie. And I think they utilized its money very, very, very well. It's well shot. Its production values are very solid and very good. I wouldn't be surprised if there still was a lot of location shooting and some shooting on the ocean, but it's still very well shot and very well done, in my opinion. Pro number 4 is Scarface the Shark. Apparently, there's also a theory out there that says this shark in this movie is Bruce the Shark's mate, which makes no sense because sharks don't take mates. They only just um they only mate for the sake of reproduction, and that's it. So, um that doesn't make sense. And then also apparently the fandom's nickname for the shark in this movie is Brucette, which is fucking stupid. I'll just go by Scarface. Because it's certainly very fitting. A good chunk of this movie, the shark has a nasty burnt black and red patch of flesh on the side of its face. And I also think that just makes the shark look more intimidating. But yeah, I like Scarface the Shark. There's not nearly as much personality that's showcased in this shark than there is in the first movie. Like you can tell in the first film, as I stated in my first review, that Bruce the Shark has a sense of sentience to him, that he likes to toy and fuck with his prey. And like he's very angry, but he's also very sinister and mean and sly and cunning. I'll agree with you there. Deep Blue Sea has the best shark animatronics. Yeah, I'll agree with that. But I will also say that I think there is some personality to Scarface, but it's very simple. Scarface is just a lean, mean eating machine that has a slight sense of a sinister edge to its personality. Like it's very mean spirited and very vicious. So I think that is good in making obviously your killer animal in your killer animal movie seem threatening. And also with its burnt face, I think Scarface is a very, very intimidating shark. And I also think that Scarface is the best looking shark of the entire Jaws franchise. A lot of the flaws with Bruce the Shark seem to have been ironed out with excuse me, with Scarface the Shark. It's very smooth. It's very thankfully does look a lot different than Bruce the Shark. Bruce the Shark looked like a kind of a typical great white, a very dark. Yeah, that one has an okay shark animatronic, but you can tell it's kind of stiff in the back region, but its mouth opens fairly well. But yeah, Bruce the Shark had a dark top and a kind of a grayish bottom, so it just looked like a typical great white. Scarface has a very kind of whitish gray top and an almost white underbelly. So that's another thing why I think this makes Scarface look better than Bruce. Its color is a bit more striking, and also with the burnt patch, that makes it stick out even more. And it also has much more realistic looking teeth. Bruce the Shark had only one row of teeth in its mouth, whereas if you look carefully with Scarface, anatomically correct to real sharks, there's rows and rows of teeth behind the main row of teeth on the shark's jaws, which is how sharks function. There's a whole bunch of teeth inside of their jaws because they lose teeth all the time. So when they lose one, another grows in its place. So that's cool. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, so I like Scarface. I think Scarface in some ways is a better shark than Bruce. So yeah, I like him. Oh crap! I lost track. 1, 2, 3. Pro number 5 is the kills in this movie, I think, are pretty damn good. This will tie in with the next pro. This movie, thankfully, does have a higher body count, which was one of my minor nitpicks with Jaws. There's only 4 kill. No, 5 kill. Yeah, 5 kills, I think. There's Chrissy, Lagoon Dude, Alex. No, there was only 4 kills. Yeah. Um, this movie has 7 kills. Not a huge increase, but just enough, and just enough variety, and they're spaced out just at enough times throughout the movie to feel like this shark definitely is attacking on a consistent base. Though it does make me wonder, how fucking hungry is this damn shark? Because it eats 2 or 3 people in pretty rapid succession at one point in this movie. So, damn, hungry much? Oh yeah, word from our sponsor. Um. Uh. So yeah, I just appreciate that there is a bigger body count, and this is actually the highest body count of the entire Jaws franchise. I cut through James A. Janice's work when he did the Jaws franchise with just one comment: 4, 7, 5, and 2. Oh boy. Um. The next pro that I have is the film scares. There's quite a few jump scares in this movie. Yes, I did notice that. It's very subtle, but you can hear a roar come out of Bruce in the first Jaws movie. Um, fuck. Oh yeah, there's quite a few good jump scares in this movie. There's not nearly as much suspense and atmosphere as there is in the first movie in Jaws 2. They kind of try, and I still think they do a good job of showcasing the shark's POV in this movie. Um, but it's just mostly more streamlined and action packed and simple. There's still inklings of that here, but it's not nearly as strong. But there are quite a few good jump scares, like the first opening scene when the two dudes are photographing the orca. All of a sudden, the shark shows up and starts attacking. And then when the dude gets an embolism, they're swimming around and diving. And then all of a sudden, Scarface comes out of nowhere and scares the shit out of that one dude. Um, the one scene when I was a kid, which, by the way, quick personal history: Jaws, Lake Placid, cross. No, because that's Mega Shark versus Gatoroid. Anyway, oh god, this chair sucks. By the way, quick personal history: Jaws 2 is actually the first Jaws movie I saw from beginning to end. Like I knew of the first movie, but the actual first Jaws movie I ever saw was Jaws 2. I saw it at my Aunt Kim's place, and I absolutely loved it. It actually made me a little afraid to go into my Aunt Kim's pool later that day because I felt like, is there a shark going to get me in this pool? But the one scene when they're trying to pull Mike out of the water and Scarface just barely misses Mike and it grazes past the edge of the boat with its mouth open. I absolutely loved that scene, and it kind of scared the crap out of me because I was like, oh, fucking hell, run. That's a really good thrilling scare moment. And then, of course, there's another good jump scare when all the excitement when Chief Brody shows up. The shark just bursts its way almost like a graboid underwater in the middle of all these boats and destroys the boats and sends the kids swimming into the water. That's a good jump scare moment. So, yeah, I like this movie Scares. Um, Pro number 8, I think. God, I keep losing track. Can you tell I'm tired? 1, 2, 3, 4, 7. Yeah, pro number 8. I like this movie's action scenes. I definitely agree with Jackie Boy and him saying this movie feels more like an action movie. Ow, that hurt. It's shot more like an action movie. It's a bit more fast paced like an action movie. And there's lots of frequent shark action, also like an action movie. And they're all thrilling and riveting and entertaining and well paced. Overall, I like the action scenes in this movie. It's very, very entertaining and gives this movie a bigger sense of scale and scope, which is cool, which is also something that all good sequels should do. And finally, pro number 9 is I love how this shark is killed. It's very bombastic and literally explosive and spectacular. And also, I like Chief Brody's one-liner: "Open wide, say ah!" Snap. Burst into flames. What a shocking experience. Sure that shark was shocked to its core that it was able to be outsmarted. And it comes to an electrifying conclusion. Anyway, yeah, I love this Jaws kill. I actually think this might be my favorite Jaws kill of the entire series. Just because of just how bombastic and spectacular it is. So yeah, those are all my pros. Do I have any cons for Jaws 2? I have mostly 3. I have it listed as 4, but it's mostly 3. One can just be seen as a giant nitpick, which I'll talk about this one now. Jackie, the only other role that I know of Jackie was in one episode. I believe it was in season 2 of the Lou Ferrigno Hulk show. She played a teenage alcoholic. Here, which also ironically that came out the same year this movie, or it started. The show started the same year this film came out, but she was in that season later on. But yeah, she was a teenage alcoholic. Here, I listed her as annoying screaming bitch because that's mostly what she does. She shows up and she's just kind of the cute girl for Mike to stare at and like have some kind of flirtations with throughout the film. And but when the shark shows up, she devolves into just a useless, annoying, screaming bitch. Whenever the shark is on screen, you hear her screams constantly. Blah! Constantly. You're just like, God damn, shut the fuck up. I know you're fucking scared, but try to be useful, please. Fuck, even Sean is more useful than you are because he's like trying to yell at the shark saying, go away. You're just sitting there like, ah, fucking screaming bitch. Con number 2 is aside from her, though, too, some of the characters in this movie, it's mostly the teenagers, are just kind of annoying. They're either kind of like douchebags or just kind of annoying or useless or dumb, which I actually kind of agree with some people saying Jaws 2 feels like a proto slasher because of its mostly teenage cast. Most of the film's kills being teenagers, and also just in general, a lot of the characters are very annoying teenagers. But it's not like something like Unfriended, where they're supposed to be playing annoying teenagers. Here, yes, they're teenagers, but just their acting is bad and it's annoying. Not a huge deal. Probably that's a shark. And I know what sharks look. I know what a shark looks like because I've seen one up close. And you better do something about this one because I don't intend to go through that hell again. Probably Chief Brody's best line in the whole movie. Yes, Shawnee Boy, Chief Brody is amazing in this film. But yeah, some of the teenagers in this movie are just kind of annoying. Their acting's kind of cringy and it's bad, and some of their dialogue is just it doesn't feel naturally written. Con number 3 is the lack of Brody and shark interaction. Brody doesn't even actually see the fucking shark until the last 10 or 12 minutes of the movie. And it's a little disappointing because Brody and the shark's interaction in the first movie, because we spent so much time with them, actually felt kind of personal, like they somehow knew each other for years. And it was like this great final Moby Dick moment where where Brody actually finally fucking kills the shark. But a good chunk of this, a majority of this movie, Brody just thinks there's a shark out there, but he never actually sees the shark until the last 10 or 12 minutes of the movie. And it's a little disappointing. I kind of wish he had a little bit more. He had a couple more attempts to kill the shark himself, like using a rifle or maybe even using a bazooka to add to this movie's well, true. Well, I'm sure there's a couple that are in like their early 20s, but whatever. I just wish that Brody had a little bit more shark interaction, because it just feels a little bit like just last minute. Oh yeah, he actually has to kill the shark, which leads into another issue with this movie. My last con, yeah, this movie's got sequelitis like crazy. More shark attacks, more beach stuff, more disbelieving politicians saying, no, it's not a shark. We need summer dollars. We need the summer season. And like big, long, open water chase to kill the shark. Lots of kills in the ocean. And of course, Brody coming in to destroy the shark in a big, bombastic, explosive way. Yeah, it feels very much like a repeat of the first movie. I don't think it's nearly as blatant and shameless. I have seen The Shallows. I think that's a damn fine movie, in my opinion. That's how you do a great, tense, modern shark movie. I'd actually say that's one of my favorite shark films. But yeah, the sequelitis here is very obvious and very blatant. I don't think it's nearly as malicious. Yeah, I definitely get the sense that Brody has a sense of PTSD from the first film. Um, and I think it's well portrayed. Like I said, I think Roy Scheider in many ways is better in this movie than he is in the first Jaws. I know that may kind of sound like blasphemy to some people, but hey, that's just my opinion. But yeah, the sequelitis is here. I don't think it's as bad as a lot of other sequels famous for sequelitis, but still, it's there. You can see it. It's blatant and it's obvious. But with all that being said, Jaws 2, I think, is still a pretty damn fine movie. It's a very entertaining sequel. It's a very entertaining movie. In some ways, I think it is better than the first film, and it doesn't feel like a mandated studio decision just to rake in money. Well, it was a studio mandated decision to rake in money, but it wasn't like nowadays where it was solely made just to make money. I feel like there actually was some effort here to make a good movie and not just something to make money. Which is why I will be giving Jaws 2 a very solid 8 out of 10. I think it's a very good movie. It's very fun. It's very entertaining. And obviously, like I said, none of the Jaws sequels have any reason to exist. But, like I said, this movie may be a cash grab, but that doesn't make it a bad movie, because I still think this is a very good film. Oh, yeah, there's not Richard Dreyfuss and Robert Shaw to steal his thunder. But that worked for the first film's advantage. But yeah, that's my review for Jaws 2. I guess I didn't have a whole lot to say about it. Well, as much to say about it. Good, 8 out of 10. good movie, very entertaining, very well made. And it's definitely the best Jaws sequel ever made. So tune in next time when I tackle the two sequels in this franchise that definitely should not exist, especially the fourth one. Yeah, look forward to that. Post your comments down below. Let me know what you think. Hit the like button and hit the subscribe button and share this video with your friends. And as always, I will see you guys in the next video. And remember, go out and enjoy some time at the beach. Just beware of bluefish that look like sharks or an actual shark. And I will see you guys in the next one.